What can the Suns expect from their rookies and their two-way contracts? We're going to get into all that, plus training camp updates, and hopefully I don't have a mental breakdown in between. Coming right up on the PHNX Suns Show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the PHNX Suns Podcast. I am Gerald Bourguet, and for the third day in a row, I am honored to be joined by my esteemed colleague and Take That for Data enthusiast, Stephen Pridgeon-Garner. Stephen, how you doing today?
Man, blessed as always, Gerald. You can hear the basketballs bouncing all over the country right now. That's the huge sign that college basketball as well as NBA hoop is on the way. Obviously, got the WNBA playoffs in the thick of things right now in the second round. So, whole lot of basketball going on, and this is like the holiday season for me. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We are running on fumes a little bit here, but I promise you guys there will be more co-hosts again at some point in the near future. Lindsay and Espo still on vacation.
No, they're all done.
Okay,
Eric,
done. And see, Eric is still alive. I promise I'm not knocking off our guests one by one here.
We'll see if I make it to the end of this episode. Well, I have a bad feeling in my stomach. I might not.
Oh, man. I promise it won't be me. I'm in front of the camera, so you know it won't be me. But we are excited to have Stephen joining us for the third day in the row. We have Eric behind the Mac today producing, and we're going to get into a little bit of season preview type stuff today. We're going to be focusing on, like I said during our cold open, Ryan Dunn, Oso Ighodaro on the rookie front, and then also our two-way guys, Jalen Bridges, Collin Gillespie, and TyTy Washington. So there's a lot of development, a lot of newness, a lot of youth in this episode. It's going to be exciting to dive into all of that. We'll start with Collin Gillespie. He was I think he was the second guy to sign a two-way deal with the Suns this summer. And at the time when he signed with them, they didn't really have any point guards. And so it felt like a very good situation for him to come into as a guy who his rookie year, he was hurt. He had the lower leg injury, so he didn't play a single game with the Denver Nuggets during their championship run. Last year was kind of his real rookie year. He played some stints with the Nuggets, especially when Jamal Murray got hurt. But he really showed a lot of what he could do on the G League stage. And if we could take a look at his stats there, he nearly put up a triple-double. Like, this guy was putting up 21 points a game, 9 assists, 11 rebounds, and 2 steals, shooting about 40% from three. So, Stephen, I'll kick it to you. I'm just curious, your thoughts on Collin Gillespie's game and what your expectations are for him this season.
Yeah, Collin is a solid guard, well-rounded. I don't think that there's a niche for him in like the main rotation with the Suns, given how heavy they are on the perimeter in particular, and how many traditional point guards now that they have, in addition to hybrid point guards, that they can obviously bake into the initiation process of everything. So it'd be hard for him to find a niche with this team in terms of playing on a consistent basis. But I do think that Collin is a very solid talent. I think we saw that, like you mentioned, the little bit of time spent with the Nuggets, obviously even more so and in a more elaborative way on the G League stage. And I think it's going to just be a matter of him being able to find an opportunity. It might not come with the Suns in particular, but finding an opportunity for him to kind of have a little bit more room to work with.
Yeah, Ted Offensive mentioned it in the chat, something that we included in our season previews that we're doing in video breakdowns. DNVR said it best about Gillespie. He's a break glass in case of emergency guy. Size and lack of athleticism kind of cap his ceiling. He is 6'1", so that's going to hurt him a little bit. He does have a plus wingspan at about 6'4", but like we mentioned, he doesn't have that ability to create a ton of separation when he's attacking the paint, when he's getting to the basket. The one thing that he is, aside from being a solid playmaker, is that he's also an elite shooter. Like, he is very good. He actually shot a better percentage last year on pull-up threes off the dribble than he did on catch and shoot threes. Both were above 40%. So this is a guy that can let it fly. He did fill in well enough for the Nuggets when Murray went down and they needed a backup point guard to kind of come in there. He does feel like an emergency backup kind of point guard. I think based on what I've seen from him in the G League, he's too good for a G League player, but whether he'll be able to carve out an NBA role is another question, especially now that they have Tyus Jones and Monte Morris in front of him in the pecking order.
Yeah, and I think you kind of said it perfectly when you mentioned he's clearly too good for the G League, but might not necessarily be good enough to be in the main rotation for a guard-heavy rotation like the Suns in terms of the contending realm of teams. Mm-hmm. I kind of see him a little bit in the same light, obviously a different archetype and dynamic of guard, but Dwayne Washington Jr., player that can obviously has multiple obvious strengths. He's obviously too good to be on the G League level, but might not necessarily be good enough to crack the main rotation. I kind of see him in a similar light as I see with DWJ, but that's not to take anything away from Collin. I think it's just a matter of opportunity more than anything else.
Yeah, and speaking to that point about opportunity, I was kind of curious because we did ask him at Summer League about how he was approaching the situation. At the time, the Suns had just agreed to a deal with Monte Morris, but Tyus Jones wouldn't be for another couple of weeks. And so that kind of changed the situation because when we spoke to him at Summer League, he was saying, I viewed it as a good situation for me because everyone knows like they didn't really have a point guard last year. And so he was excited about that. So I did follow up with him at Media Day just to get his thoughts. Like, did bringing in Tyus and Monte kind of change his outlook at all?
Kind of the same way. For myself, I've always just been a competitor. I'm going to go in and compete, try to make the best out of the opportunity, make guys better around me in practice and games. And then also it's an ability for me to learn from those guys. I think Monte is going into maybe year 8 and Tyus in 10. So they have a lot of experience, and experience is valuable in this league. And I could learn a lot from those two guys and pick their brains. All three of us are kind of undersized guards, so seeing how they've stuck this long in the league is going to be really important for me. But I'm excited to just learn, compete with them and against them in practice, help make each other better. Iron sharpens iron, so I'm excited for it.
As much as I cringe now when I hear that phrase iron sharpens iron, because it's now the most overused phrase in Phoenix Suns basketball history, I love his approach there. Like, I love the fact that he's coming into this not as these guys are in my way, they're blocking my opportunity, but I can learn from these guys as fellow undersized point guards in this league about what they've done to stick around in this league. That's the right approach that you love to hear from a young player, from a guy who's going to be, fluctuating between the real team and the G League squad. Thank you, everyone in the chat who's here with us. Amelia, Andy Cruz, hello. Patrick, leave a like for Collin Gillespie and his positive attitude because we need more positive vibes.
Also,
leave
a like for Patrick, who says he's been unable to join the live chat for the past 2 weeks because his wife and him had their first baby girl.
Look at that.
She's home safe and sound. Got her a Phoenix Suns jersey just a few days ago.
We love that, Patrick. Congratulations to you and to your wife. Leave a like for Patrick becoming a father. That's fantastic news. Steven, any final thoughts on Collin before we move on?
I think for a young guard that is clearly skilled, there's no better scenario if you're not getting the actual game reps than to be able to learn, and not just learn from one guard, but having learned from the type of guards that he's been able to spend time around. Obviously, you got Jamal Murray, to a different extent, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in the time with the Nuggets, and then obviously with the Suns, he's got Bradley Beal and Devin Booker, in addition to Monte Morris and Tyus Jones. That's a lot of experience, a bunch of different styles of ways of going about being successful as a guard on the NBA stage. And I think that soaking up knowledge and being able to kind of shapeshift it and apply it to your personal style of play and how you look at the game from preparation to actually how you play on the court, there's just invaluability with that. And I hope it definitely sounds like he's taking full advantage of it. I hope he continues to do so.
Absolutely. We do have a super chat here from Amzobi Kane. Thank you for your chat. $5 super chat. I think Book and Jones should share the point guard role. Point Book was good, and Jones or Monte plus 2 Book and Beal is too small. I'll get your thoughts on that, Steven, but I do feel like we are going to see some point book, especially maybe closer to the playoffs when the rotation shortens up a bit. If Monte is not able to, prove himself in the rotation or hold up defensively or whatever the case might be, I think we'll definitely see point book in pockets. But I do think to start the season, we'll probably see guys in their more traditional roles, except for Book, because he's kind of sliding over to that 3 spot now.
Yeah, I think the offense, the plan for Mike Budenholzer is for the offense to take on different looks. I know we heard Frank Vogel mention a litany of times last season that it's all about them having multiple initiators on offense. I don't think that's gone. I think they just found a little bit more organization within that. And in that came a lot of great reps last season with Devin Booker at the point guard position. So that's not going to just be obsolete. It's just going to be used in a more sparing way and hopefully be more impactful and effective given the reps that they had last season. And even in the last season where Chris Paul was still on the roster, where Devin Booker was taking on more initiating responsibilities. And then to answer the latter part of that question, or the statement rather from the Super Chat, it's not too small. There's different stature of players on multiple rosters across the NBA at this point, but almost every team has main rotation type of iterations of lineups that are 3 guard. Some guards might be 6'6", where it looks like there's a small forward on the court, but it's still more of a guard than it is a true type of forward. Obviously, Devin Booker is much more of a guard than a forward. That goes without saying. So literally, they might be a little bit smaller, but looking at the landscape and the way that things are playing now, a whole lot of 3 guard lineups. A lot of teams have 3 guard lineups in their starting rotation.
Yeah, absolutely. Psycho Blue, I do see your super chat. We will get to it later in the show because we are going to talk about some Bradley Beal stuff later on for our training camp segment. But let's talk about TyTy Washington, Steven. Another guy on a 2-way deal, the last one to sign a 2-way deal. You are allowed 3 2-way deals in the NBA now. TyTy, through his first 2 years in the NBA, has mostly spent time in the G League. His rookie year with the Rockets, he played a good amount of games and a decent amount of minutes, but he was traded twice on draft night, wound up with the Rockets. His first offseason, traded twice again, waived by the Thunder, signed a 2-way deal with the Milwaukee Bucks, and kind of played sparingly for them. I think he played a grand total of like 50-some minutes overall, took 20 shots all of last season. So most of what we have on TyTy comes back to his time in the G League. But if you look at his G League numbers, they were also pretty impressive in terms of what he was able to do. 18.5 points, 7 assists, just under 4 rebounds. Only shot 43% from the field, but shot about 38% from 3. I just did a season preview on TyTy Washington over at gophnx.com. We've got the written piece and the video breakdown if you're curious for more. But the 2 things that stood out to me about his game is he is very good about sizing up space and getting to his pull-up jumper at any point in time. Like he doesn't mind. He's 6'3" with a 6'8" wingspan, so he's got decent size for that position. He's good at creating contact to create space to get his shot off. He can cross over at any time, and he can sense when he has enough space to let it fly. It was kind of interesting because the G League season is divided into like the winter showcase, which is where there's a lot of NBA scouts. It's a little more higher competitive levels, and then there's the regular season. His shooting numbers, his assist numbers all went down pretty significantly regular season compared to that higher stakes showcase. So he's going to have to prove that he can hit threes at an NBA level, because if you look at his time in Houston and in Milwaukee, he hasn't shot nearly as well as he did during the G League regular season last year. Steven, your thoughts on TyTy's game?
I think you rounded it out extremely well. And not to piggyback off of everything that you said, but that was the main thing that I had in mind. It was for him to get to that NBA level is really going to be 3-point latent. He's got to figure that part out. And past just the 3-point shooting, especially if you're a self-creating type of guard, you have to be efficient on that. And I think that he has the ability, he has the potential. He has to just kind of find it and see it in a sustained manner, like you talked about the higher level in the winter showcase compared to the regular season. Seeing it in a more sustained manner will obviously make him more appealing to general managers and just generally speaking when he goes past this season in his career. I think he has to figure that efficiency part out if you're looking for your own shot. And he has an opportunity to do it, not unlike with Collin Gillespie, looking at the people that he can learn from in the Suns organization directly on the same team as him. You got Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant that you can holler at whenever you want the opportunity to. I don't think you can find a better compilation of guards, especially that play to the style of TyTy Washington's game, that he could watch film of and learn from on a daily basis.
Yeah, and TyTy has that. He has the Phoenix hometown thing going for him. He is a native of Phoenix out here. He actually was an AAU teammate of Oso Ighodaro's growing up, they both being Phoenix natives. And also, like Devin Booker, he has that Kentucky connection because TyTy went to Kentucky. They talked about it a little bit at Media Day, and Devin Booker was saying that he would be there for those guys and for all the rookies in general when they had questions. And so far, based on what we've gotten out of training camp, it sounds like a lot of these guys have had questions. But in terms of, outside of the three-point shot, the one thing that I look for with him is he's got decent size for a point guard, but he's not like an athletic beast or an above the rim player. So when he gets into the painted area, the one thing that you're going to notice about his game is that he has a patented go-to floater, almost to the point that you're like, you didn't need to take a floater there, but it was nice. Like it went in. He goes to that a lot. And so I actually got to ask him about his floater and how he developed it at Media Day.
Yeah, I did develop the floater at like a really young age, like probably middle school. My mom and my dad, they taught me how to have touch around the rim and stuff like that. And as I just got older, I kind of realized, I'm not going to be one of the guys above the rim. So I have to be able to finish, a different way. And I just feel like, the floater.
Yeah, so the floater, it's going to be a common thing. I mean, anytime we talk about a player that developed a floater, it's because they were getting their stuff blocked when they were little because they were undersized. But it is a useful skill to have, and it is going to be a fun thing to watch during his time in the G League and if he does spend any time with the Suns. Any final thoughts on TyTy before we talk about our final two-way guy?
As a guard who's had their shot blocked a handful of times, there's no better feeling outside of a crossover than when you're able to put up a floater that just goes over the outstretched arms of anybody trying to block your shot, and then it goes in. You're not dunking on people, you're not catching bodies, so that is your equivalent, and you definitely give them a look afterwards. That floater is extremely clutch, and I liken the floaters to especially undersized quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. You can't always throw from the natural arm slot because of the height disadvantage that you're at, so the way to neutralize it is to be able to throw from different arm slots. And that's like a sleight of hand in the general package of a player's game. And I feel like that particular floater for TyTy kind of hits ass for him, man. You can look at a litany of guards over the course of NBA history that have mastered that shot. Chris Paul being one in recent memory. Ricky Rubio had a decent floater. Even players like Tony Parker as well. So I think he's in the right alignment in terms of what he's adding to his bag there for sure.
We have a lot of guys on this team that will go to the floater because we got TyTy, we got Oso, who we'll talk about in a little bit. We've got Tyus Jones. He took more floaters than anybody last season, it feels like. So that's going to be a fun component. It's been a while since we've seen the Jay Crowder put the floaties on, so maybe we'll get to see that again this year. Let's talk about our final two-way guy, Jalen Bridges, 3-and-D wing out of Baylor. And I actually got to talk with his head coach at Baylor, Scott Drew, and I kind of got his thoughts on what is it about Jalen Bridges that will allow him to play right away, and this is what he had to say.
The reason he can play right away is because he's solid defensively, and he can guard 1 through 5. He's a real low turnover guy, so he's not going to be out there and make mistakes. He doesn't take bad shots, and he shoots a high percentage.
Steven, I want to get your thoughts on Bridges' game, but it feels like he is a high floor, low ceiling kind of guy. Is that your read on what he can bring to the table?
That's definitely the vibe that he gives me. Obviously, he plays a position that is of high value, and the way that teams desire for that position to be played, being kind of 3-and-D-ish. So I think he fits directly into that high ceiling, low floor type of box. But I do also think that when a head coach from the collegiate level says you can guard 1 through 5, it might not necessarily show initially when a player gets to the NBA stage. It's going to take some time for that to develop. But I feel like that's something being said more so in what they're seeing at practice and the different scenarios that they saw them succeed in across multiple matchups, and more than likely being induced by switches. And I think that's something that will give them some staying power. Obviously, if that three-point shot holds up near or around 40%, that's something that can really, really put him in the main rotation for almost any team at that point.
So the next season preview that I'll be doing tomorrow that will be out, written piece and video breakdown again, will be on Jalen Bridges. So I'm not going to give away too much for you guys just yet. But a couple of things that have stood out to me about his game, watching some of his college film, watching him at NBA Summer League, he is always ready to shoot. And because he has good size at 6'7", he's able to get his shot off very quickly, over defenders, over contests. He's always got his hands out, his knees bent. He is always providing an angle for the ball handler to hit him. The one thing that I want to see more of him as he continues to develop as a shooter, there's no problem catching the ball and shooting it from a standstill position. But if he can continue to evolve as a movement shooter, a guy that's flying off screens and presents an ever-present threat because of that movement and ability to pull up and square up anywhere on the court, I think that's what's going to raise his NBA ceiling a little bit. And then defensively, I don't want anyone to be under the impression that he's some lockdown defensive stud. I think he's got great size, 6'7", 6'10" wingspan. He knows how to use his length well. He plays physically with his chest. And he's just a committed, engaged defender. And sometimes that's enough, but there will be an adjustment period for him. He's not going to come in and be some defensive specialist type of guy from day one. Like you talked about, Steven, there will be that adjustment process for most rookies, but especially for a guy who, as much as he probably should have been a second-round draft pick, is still a second-round draft pick / two-way guy at the end of the day.
Yeah. And for Suns fans, no pun intended with the last name, but he definitely fits into the Mikal Bridges mold. Mm-hmm. Now the question comes, how committed is he to his skill development, to rounding out his game, to where his strengths can be accompanied and complemented by other ancillary things that help give him outlets to stay on the floor, not unlike Mikal Bridges did. So I think it'll be fun to kind of watch him just kind of find his way on this NBA stage. It was fun to watch him in summer leagues. You can see some of the little things he does, especially his impact when he's one pass away. And I think there's a lot of value in that, but it's just about building out to the and then what. So you can do this. That's good. That's really good. But what else do you bring to the table to add value?
Absolutely. And the thing that I love about him is that he is very self-aware. There is obviously an opening for 3-and-D minutes on this team. This team needs more wing minutes, capable wing minutes on both ends. But we did ask Jalen Bridges about kind of how he sees himself as a player, and I thought his response was very self-aware.
I know what I am. I'm very self-aware. I'm not one of the guys that is going to get paid to, take all the shots. I'm more so a guy that's out there to make life easy on the Durants, the Beals, the Bookers. I feel like I'm a connector piece, like you said, 3-and-D. But I feel like that's putting myself into a box. I feel like I do a lot more than just shoot and play defense.
He knows what he's good at. He knows the value of being a 3-and-D guy, but we also love to hear that he doesn't want to put himself in a box, that he wants to show that he can do more. And like you mentioned, Steven, that's going to be the key to him carving out a role in an NBA rotation. Guys, we are going to end the two-way talk now, and we're going to transition to talking about the rookies. But first, we're going to take a real quick break.
You thought we were going to do a show without me reading the ads. Come on now. I got to tell you about our friends over at Branded Bills. I'm actually rocking a Branded Bills hat right here, right now. There's also a Branded Bills hat right behind Gerald's shoulder right there on set. Super comfortable. The best material I've ever had in any hat, and I'm a massive hat guy. I'm pretty much wearing hats every day. Ever since I got Branded Bills, they are in my daily rotation. They've got everything that you need: snapbacks, truckers, fitted beanies, or even t-shirts. Plus, they can do custom stuff as well. I know we're getting some custom PHNX stuff that we are going to get, and we're very excited about. They're going to help you stand out from the crowd, and of course, they're a local company as well out there in Mesa, Arizona. They got partnerships with ASU and U of A as part of their campus collections. Of course, I'm rocking the ASU because you'll never catch me rocking that other school. But if that's your prerogative, then you can go ahead and get some with Branded Bills. Plus, you can get some money off. Head to brandedbills.com. Use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. And also saving some money and on a good deal, that's our friends over at Game Time. I love Game Time. I use Game Time all the time. In fact, I used it to get some concert tickets that I would not have been able to afford unless I went on Game Time. And I actually had to check. I'm like, I got to do my due diligence because Game Time does have a price check and a price match. And I'm like, I got to make sure I get the lowest prices. I went, I checked all these other websites. It wasn't even close. Plus, Game Time has all the fees included up front. You just toggle that feature on and you will not be surprised by anything. You get views from your seat and they have the lowest price guarantee, or they'll match you 110%. So make sure that you take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Do that over at Game Time. And they also have Game Time Picks, which is going to help you find the best deals in the best spots so you don't have to spend hours searching for what you want. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Some terms do apply, but again, create an account, redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time?
Game time? And I'm gone.
I love Hello in the chat giving me crap for the way that I set up that last clip. He said, Girth, quote, I'm self-aware, clip, quote, I'm self-aware. Sorry about that. I really hate it when I set up a clip and then steal the first line of the clip. Leave a like for me being so good at setting up clips that I accidentally steal the line from the clip. Steven, let's talk about the rookies now. We're going to start with Ryan Dunn, the Suns' first round pick. They traded down from number 22 to number 28. Still got their guy that they wanted there. And let's start with the obvious. This is a defensive stud. Every draft expert that I read or talked to over the summer said something similar about this is one of the best draft prospects I've ever evaluated in terms of what he can do on that end of the floor, the way he can wreak havoc and blow up plays from anywhere on the court. And I actually did get to talk to Virginia Cavaliers coach Tony Bennett and got his thoughts about what makes Ryan Dunn so special.
Big play defensive ability. He's one of the finest he's the most impressive I've coached. I mean, the spectacular block, he'll make spectacular plays. And I think as he continues to mature, he'll even get more consistent, just keeping guys in front. But he would just make some plays. You'd be like, man, he just owned the game defensively with X amount of blocks, steals, and, some of these plays.
It was funny talking to Coach Bennett. He went on to explain that sometimes they had to be like, Ryan, you're guarding everyone but your own man. And he's like, yeah, but I can get these steals. I can get these blocks. And, they were just joking around with him. But Steven, that ability to never be out of a play, to be, this chase down block specialist, this weak side help rim protector as a 6'8" wing, as a guy who led the ACC in blocks per game last year as a wing. That's something special, and I think it's something that the Suns could have used a little bit more of last year.
Yes, me and you have gone back and forth for what feels like 7 or 6 months at this point about the Suns not being bad defensively. Mm-hmm. It's just that sometimes they lack the requisite size to have the impact that comes with the positioning within the defensive philosophies that whoever their head coach has had in place. I think that Ryan really showcased in Summer League, and I tried to talk about it as much as I could on my timeline on Twitter. You can feel his impact when he's that player that's peeled in early at the nail or peeled in early as a low man, as you mentioned. And even past that, his ability, just the innate ability to have that feel defensively. You talk about feel a lot with point guards or pure scorers, Kevin Durant, a Chris Paul type. Flip it defensively, Ryan Dunn has just general feel that you really can't teach. You can't watch film and develop feel the way that he has it. And I think that being accompanied by his size and also the athleticism makes him extremely unique on this Suns roster. And I think that there are multiple niches for him to carve out. I think that in an optimized manner, I talked about the Suns needing a blue-collar type of players. If he could spearhead that group at some point in this early portion of the regular season, I think that speaks greatly to the potential and trajectory that he has in this Suns context.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you touched on something in terms of having those instincts to make those plays being something that you can't really teach. And I had this a little bit later, but Josh Okogie said something very similar at Media Day. And so far, it sounds like Ryan Dunn and Josh Okogie are both on the same page as far as Ryan Dunn. This is a guy that he can pick his brain. And that's kind of a terrifying thought for other teams. Here's what they had to say.
I mean, he has the most important trait, and that trait is to want to learn. You know what I'm saying? He really wants to learn, and that's all he cares about doing right now is learning and soaking everything up like a sponge. And, you know, with that mindset and with that trait, I mean, the sky's the limit for him. I mean, not only defensively, but he's really fun to watch play offensively as well. And, yeah, he does have a good defensive instincts. He knows his timing on blocks and playing passing lanes and stuff like that. And that's stuff that you can't teach, and he has those kind of intangibles. So it's going to be very interesting to watch him grow defensively. And I also just told him, anything you need, I'm here to help.
That's someone I'm gonna look up to a lot this year. You know, his mindset last year was defensively, and you know, I saw a lot of clips from him last year. So I talked to him earlier, even during pickup, like how do you know, different tips and tricks in the league, how to get to defenders and offensive players and stuff like that. So he's gonna be a guy I can ask questions to any time. So I'm glad I have him with me.
Again, the prospect of Ryan Dunn being able to learn from Josh Okogie as basically a 6'8" Josh Okogie is pretty terrifying. And that's exciting. I know it's cliche and we hear it from a lot of different teams, but I do love when rookies come in, and it's something we as Suns fans and people that follow the team have not been able to enjoy for a while now. When Suns rookies come in and they get to learn from people with similar skill sets and get to enhance the things that they do well. And Okogie's just a great guy to learn from in that respect, because he makes some of the most insane defensive plays that you will see in this league. Steven, I want to get your thoughts on this, because we'll transition to the offense in a minute, but I do think it was interesting to hear what Ryan Dunn had to say when we asked him about who he would compare himself to. And this was all the way back right before Summer League, but this is what he said.
I watch a lot of guys like Herb Jones, OG Anunoby, guys that fit my resemblance, a little bit of like Jaden McDaniels, guys that are long and athletic.
And then offensively, what sort of steps would you like to take, especially during the summer?
You know, obviously, you know, getting reps with like shooting threes and putting on the ball on the floor, being able to run out in transition and show what I can do there, and just getting reps, you know, just making plays off the dribble and, you know, making the right plays and just learning from mistakes over time in the summer league.
So first of all, something Ted Offensive touched on in the chat, Dunn talks faster than Ishbia, which is impressive. He does talk very, very fast. Transcribing him is probably the most difficult on the team. But Steven, we love to hear the names Jaden McDaniels, OG Anunoby, and Herb Jones, right?
We love it. Yes, those are almost one-of-one type of defenders that are of the highest value. I think that one of the best common denominators, and I think Dunn already has this. You can talk about the timing with blocks. You can talk about the steals. I think the two things that maybe I value most, and just kind of assessing defenders and their value, the ability to navigate screens on ball and off ball, because of the trickle-down value that gives your team in terms of being successful on any given defensive possession or within any given action that an opposing team is running. That screen navigation piece he has to develop it more on ball, but he definitely has it off ball as a chaser and potentially top locking and things like that. The other big thing, which kudos to Chris Finch, I had a chance to speak with him at All-Star Weekend this past season, and he said one of the things that he attributes great defense to most, especially with the evolution of offense and the abilities for players to create their own shots. He said sometimes scheme doesn't really even matter, because it's going to get to the point where at some point in the clock, somebody's going to generate a look, whether it be self-created or off the pass. And it's about how well your defenders are able to impact the release of whoever it is that's taking a shot. And Ryan has that super plus wingspan in addition to his natural height and the athleticism to always stay in position. And Josh talked about his timing on his blocks. I think the timing at which he jumps to contest shots is equally as impactful because of the aforementioned dynamics that he has with the wingspan and things of that nature. And those are things that are going to really help him stay on the floor, but not just stay on the floor, but have like a different, unique impact. Gerald, we talked about it with Bourguet last season as well as Kevin Durant. Those two players were the best at contesting shots for the Suns last season. To have a third player in a similar archetype in terms of his stature defensively that can do even more than those two, I think he gives himself a great opportunity to carve a niche in this rotation, and Mike Budenholzer loves him a wing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we will have a season preview for Ryan Dunn out over the weekend. That'll be going up on Saturday. But while I was going through his film from college and summer league, the three things that stood out to me the most: the timing, like you mentioned, on the blocks, the ability to size those up from any angle on the floor really was incredible. The fact that, like I said, he is never truly out of a play. So many of his blocks were recovery blocks, just not giving up and refusing to let the opponent have an easy layup. The athleticism just stands out, obviously, as well. But he really does have great instincts on that end of the floor. The one thing, though, if you are going to compare yourself to a Herb Jones and say, Jaden McDaniels and OG Anunoby, some of these guys, the obvious thing that those guys were able to do and improve upon from college is being able to be playable offensively, being able to knock down a three-point shot, and that is going to be Ryan Dunn's biggest challenge, as we all know. In college, he made just 20% of his threes last year, 23.5% overall. Free throw percentage, which is usually a pretty good indicator of shooting ability, he was only at about 52.5%. It's not that the shot looks bad, as we saw in Summer League, as we saw in all these offseason workout videos with KD and whatnot. The shot looks good. He was doing things in those videos that we have not seen clearly at Virginia, some step back threes, some step back jumpers, that sort of thing. But this is going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And this is what Ryan Dunn had to say when we asked about, is it a matter of reps? Is it a matter of confidence? What does it take to improve as a shooter?
It's just reps, repetitions, getting the shots up in game and practice, shooting after practice, trying to get as much of that in. I think mechanically just keeping it smooth. Don't try to overthink, just let it go and just have confidence shoot. I think my form is there. It's just getting the reps, like I said. Like you said, if it's once it starts hitting, it's just find that shooter's touch and keep going. Like kind of said, I've been shooting all my life, so it's just kind of keeping those reps up and just keep going from there.
Again, it's going to take some time, going to take some reps, but this guy is dedicated. He's working hard based on everything that we've heard from players, from coaches, from, behind the scenes. This guy lives in the gym, and it's a cliche, but we love to see that from a rookie. Steven, any final thoughts on Ryan Dunn and the whole jump shooting aspect of it before we talk about Oso?
I think one of the best things that he could learn from those aforementioned defenders, obviously, you can learn from just watching them defend on the NBA level. But I think that past that, like you mentioned, and like we're speaking to now, the offensive side, how did those guys early on in their career find ways to give their team the value they have defensively by figuring it out on offense as a screener, as a cutter, and doing some of the things on the periphery that really can take the disadvantage of you not being regarded for in terms of how a defense is guarding you, to now giving them some way to either you're exacerbating the advantage that they're conceding, or you're creating something new within how you're operating on that side of the floor. Naturally, one way to scapegoat out of that is just by being the chaos inducer and getting out in transition and running the floor. Because at that point, whether you can shoot or not doesn't matter, because he's an A-plus athlete in terms of running the floor and really filling lanes in transition. So I'm really looking forward to how he kind of pulls it together, but starting with early in his career because of how he's going to be guarded, doing those little things to where he can kind of make advantages out of something that could be a disadvantage.
The leaping ability should not be slept on. The ability to perform in transition should not be slept on. That's part of the reason why I think he might have a role on this team if the jump shot can just be serviceable, because this team does want to play faster. And Ryan is great at reading passing lanes, turning steals into pick sixes and monster dunks. And that type of big play ability and the ability to block jump shots. He blocked so many jump shots last year, just locking guys down one-on-one and getting a hand up, a hand on the ball. And that's a quick, fast break going the other way if you're able to do that. Let's talk about Oso Ighodaro now. I think the biggest thing with Oso is, obviously the ability to play make, but another quirk in his game, and we alluded to it earlier when we were talking about TyTy Washington, is the floater, the push shot. Oso has never seen a push shot that he did not like. Here's what he had to say about the development of his push shot.
Yeah, when I was younger, I played pickup at the rec and stuff, and the older guys would be blocking my shots, so I'd try to get to a little floater. And I just kind of kept working on it, and then at Marquette, I spent a lot of time on it. So a shot that I trust, shoot at a high level. Obviously, I didn't shoot at a high level last game, but it's a shot that I like to shoot.
Again, younger guy getting his shot blocked, learns how to develop a push shot. The one thing that's rough for me is that he doesn't have a shot outside of that, really. There's no floor spacing component here. There's no 3-point shooting ability really whatsoever at this stage. And a lot of it is either right at the rim or that push shot. But Steven, what do you think about his offensive game and what he can bring to the table there?
I like the Ighodaro prospect for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely rough on the edges, but I think he provides skill that kind of overlaps with what Mason Plumlee is bringing as a major plus, and obviously what Yusuf Nurkic brings as a baseline and all of the impact and value he brings on the offensive end of the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I think another big thing that I really highlighted as well on my Twitter timeline during the Summer League sessions also is an impactful screener.
Yes.
He understands angles. He understands the timing mechanism of, I may need to hold this for a beat longer than I did last time to make sure my guard comes off free. My guard comes off free. Now I can release into the roll. And now he's got that person, he's holding the tension of my matchup. So now I'm able to roll, and I've created a little bit of a pocket, which now plays into my advantage. I get the catch around the nail. I can catch and hold and kick it to the second side. I can kick it to the strong side if somebody's peeled in from that strong side corner. Or I can take that extra dribble, make the defense commit, get up the floater, or still make those passes and make the ability to make those passes on accuracy and timing when the defenders kind of come into the insteps. He's really razor sharp in that particular dynamic of play on offense. And I think that for a Suns group that's going to have 4 spacers on the floor with them, regardless of who he's on the floor with, there's a lot of value that comes with that. Because like we've talked about with Yusuf Nurkic, a lot of the screening value that he brings trickles directly into the places where his strengths are. So being able to have some redundancy there, I don't think is a negative in any capacity. But for Oso, like you mentioned, if he's taking that floater shot at the volume at which he is, it has to be efficient. Otherwise, it's going to be the equivalent of Nurkic and the missed layup dynamic from last season. I hate to bring it back up, but it's the same type of impact. It's okay. Can we get a better shot from somewhere else than you taking this? And, you hate to see a player get stuck at that point because it's clearly something that they're comfortable doing. It just has to come on efficiency. Not unlike the way coaches grapple back and forth with mid-range shooters. If you're not shooting it at 52, 53%, a three-point shooter taking a 33 or 34% shot is equally of as much value. So just kind of looking at it through that lens for him.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. The screening is very impactful. He's a good screener, and he's a good re-screener in terms of flipping the screen, changing his angle quickly. That's a critical thing to have, even as a rookie. The Suns do have very good screeners. Nurk was elite in that respect. Mason Plumlee is very good. It's like running into a brick wall, and Oso is very smart in how he sets screens. The other thing that's very impactful for him, obviously something that we mentioned but haven't really gotten into, the playmaking component, being a hub, a playmaking hub, a facilitator. Coach Vince LaGarza, who's an assistant on the Suns staff and was the Summer League coach, talked a little bit about that when we talked to him in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I just think his ability to connect with others while playing in the pocket, and, that's going to be a weapon for him, is his little push shot. But I think more so is him playing in the pocket. I think when he's playing with the Phoenix Suns, he's going to see different coverages. Teams tend to blitz our guys. They tend to switch our guys. That's a different look in the pocket. If teams are going to play drop against the Suns, we're going to probably be talking to Oso about getting sets, really cracking screens, and I think we got the personnel to take advantage of that. So I think you're going to see him really flourish with our Suns group playing alongside our entire team and the coverages we see, where his playmaking, after the screen is really going to be valuable.
I think that was something that got lost in the whole Summer League conversation when you're looking at just raw production from Oso and Ryan Dunn, is the fact that the things that they do are not going to stand out as much at Summer League, because when you're looking at the frame of Summer League, you want to see guys look so much better than their competition. You want to see rookies putting up big numbers because they're just so much better than everybody else. But in truth, the things that Oso and Ryan do well are going to matter more in a Suns context because they fit in with what Phoenix already has. And so that playmaking element, like even at Marquette, he only averaged like 3 or 4 assists per game, but it's because he was playing with Tyler Collette, who was one of the top assist guys in the nation. But they still ran a fair amount of their offense through him as a playmaking hub. In the season preview that I'm doing that's going up on Sunday, one thing that stood out to me is how many passes he just slung through and threaded the needle on, bounce passes to cutters to split cuts, and having a third guy that can do that while bringing a little bit more athleticism to the table than a Nurk or a Plumlee, having that basketball IQ as a rookie is really impressive. And it's something that, we'll touch on what makes him a little bit different from the Sun centers in a minute, but being able to set those screens, to be a playmaking big, just like Nurk and Plumlee, I think those things are going to lend themselves to, maybe he's not playing right away in Bud's rotation, but if there's an injury or if there's a matchup where he's a little bit more favorable, I think he might be able to carve out a role for himself.
I 100% agree there. And it's that connecting ability that Coach mentioned too. I'm just cycling through moments on film from last season with Jusuf Nurkic, where the playbook for Frank Vogel really evolved to where it started featuring Nurkic as that hub and as that kind of pseudo point guard, where his touch is the trigger of action to come, whether he's flowing into an empty corner dribble handoff with somebody or they're getting into pistol variations and he's handling the ball in different scenarios like that. He has a great ability to read the leverage and almost like a quarterback, throw people open. Somebody might not necessarily be open in terms of when they make a backdoor cut, but because of his timing and the touch at which he puts on the ball, it still gets to his intended receiver in a clean manner. And if you're talking about that on a summer league level compared to who he'd be throwing the ball to on the NBA level, that's a lot of value. Again, it allows for you to run similar actions to what you're able to do in your best lineups. And for Suns fans that were watching last season, one of the biggest things I criticized most was that with Drew Eubanks, we thought that he would be a really good dribble handoff execution type of player, making backdoor passes, playmaking on the short roll. It just wasn't at the level that it needed to be at for them to run the same type of actions that they did with Jusuf Nurkic. I looked directly at that very last game or second to last game in Denver last season. Jusuf Nurkic is killing the Nuggets with the elbow 5 and pistol 5 actions that they're getting into. They try to run those same actions with Drew Eubanks, and the offense is just flattened out because he just doesn't have that same type of dynamic and ability. I don't think that that's going to be an issue when you look past Nurkic, when you're looking at Mason Plumlee or Oso Ighodaro being used in similar actions. It might run it a little bit differently, but they're still going to be able to execute and get that high value points per possession out of those same actions.
And to your point, like we talked about this a little bit earlier with Okogie and Ryan Dunn, but he does have these two bigs that he can pick their brains and learn from. One of the things that's been touted about him is his basketball IQ, his ability to identify plays in a snap instant. And he's going to be able to continue to learn from these guys up close. It was kind of funny. I talked to him in NBA Summer League about, being able to pick these guys' brains. And he actually said that he's been watching a lot of film.
Yeah, I watched a lot of Plumlee's film. Shaka would have me watch his film a lot at Marquette. So they're both very smart players, and they do a lot of different things well. So I'm going to try to learn as much as I can, ask them a bunch of questions. That's this whole process. I've just been asking a ton of questions. And there's so many guys who have spent so much time in the league. So I'm just excited to learn, get better.
To your point about Shaka, I read somewhere that he was hitting up David Adelman with the Nuggets to learn things about how they did 5-out actions with Nurk so they could implement that for you. Was that something he ever discussed with you or told you, hey, watch this guy's film or this guy's film or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I've watched every big that can dribble in the league. I've watched all their film. And just to have coaches like that push that and encourage me to learn and be better has been amazing.
So there was, I love the fact that he's out here watching Mason Plumlee film, Jusuf Nurkic film, Nikola Jokic film. That is a true sicko at heart, and we love that. But the fact that, for those who aren't familiar, there was a story that David Adelman met with Coach Shaka Smart, and Shaka was kind of picking his brain about how they use Nikola Jokic in these 5-out actions. And so they kind of took some of that and brought it to Marquette with Oso, and it really transformed from year to year after they did that in terms of his playmaking ability. But Steven, any final thoughts on Oso before we move on?
I think Okogie mentioned it perfectly when he was talking about Ryan Dunn. That willingness to learn is a true separating factor. You can talk about all of the physical things. You can talk about all these other things. If that player or that person is not willing to learn to accompany that, it's never going to peak the way that it potentially could. And that's why I was lit up smiling, hearing that he was watching Mason Plumlee film. Like, there's a lot of other bigs that he could watch across the entire NBA. He's watching Mason Plumlee film in addition to Nikola Jokic and these other players that are in between in terms of skill level on the spectrum of starting or just centers in general in the NBA. There's a lot of value in hearing young people speak with that type of wisdom and that type of foresight. That really speaks and bodes well to his potential going forward. And honestly, like you said, it's very sicko of him, and it made the sicko and me smile hearing him say that.
Absolutely. We're all just nodding, shaking our heads like, yes, we understand, Oso. We get it. I think that's gonna wrap it on our season preview portion of the episode. We talked about all three two-way guys. We talked about the two rookies. We are going to talk about a couple more updates from training camp today that I found interesting, but we're going to do that on the other side of this break.
Sanderson Ford Country.
Was the mic
when
off?
I unmute my mic. Listen, gotta love Sanderson Ford. I remember going out there when we first became partners with Sanderson Ford, and we are absolutely proud for them to be our partners, and they're proud partners of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Rest in peace. Their facility is absolutely insane. 65 acres. They have a museum in there. They have a diner in there, but that's not the most important part. Well, it's nice. They're there to get you in the right vehicle, and they're there to do it in a stress-free way. They're not there to just try to make a quick buck, get in, get out. No. But buying a car is a really long experience. They want to make sure that you are comfortable as well. Plus, Sanderson Ford is giving you big payoffs like 0% financing on new 2024 F-150s, Escape, Edge, Explorer, and Expeditions. It really is the best place here to get a vehicle. Get deals on 2024 Ford Bronco Sport for 5.9% APR for 66 months plus $2,000. Must be financed through Ford Motor Credit OAC. Also, help us celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month with Dia de los Muertos inspired trunk or treat at Sanderson Ford. Just see the dealership for details. You can get in your nice Sanderson Ford vehicle and drive out to Gila River Resorts and Casinos, because nobody does it better, especially when they are hosting our watch parties for Cardinals and for Suns games this season. Of course, out at Wild Horse Pass, but they also have Lone Butte, Vicuiva, Santan Mountain. They have everything. I'm actually getting choked up just thinking about how beautiful it is. They have a bunch of different dining options from upscale to approachable as well. Whether you want some pizza, a burger, maybe you want some Asian fusion, you have all of that over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, state-of-the-art gaming floor as well. Plus a sports book if you want to watch some games, put a little money down, and maybe make a little money as well. Truly, nobody does it better because you do you. At Gila River Resorts and Casinos, visit playatgila.com for more details.
Beautiful. Leave a like for Eric in the chat. I mean, this guy is just a pro at reading ads, so
until
that I don't have to.
Choking.
I mean, you really made it through it despite having, a choke attack during the middle of that. That's tough. All right. Training camp updates to close out the show today. We got a hold of Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Damion Lee today. Book was actually a little bit early, but we did hear from Bradley Beal. And for those who are wondering, I know, like, we talked about it a little bit, but in terms of Ryan Dunn and Oso actually carving out a role this season, they both have their work cut out for them. I think for Ryan, there's a clear path in terms of we need a defensive wing. We need someone to take that burden off of Kevin Durant. But there's the obvious question about the three-point shooting with Oso. It's the fact that as of right now, you're probably third in the pecking order. You've got two more experienced guys. A coach like Mike Budenholzer is probably going to lean towards more experienced players, and the young guys are going to have to prove themselves. But it was interesting to hear Bradley Beal talk about the rookies today, because he's just as high on them as anybody.
Man, it's crazy. I was literally going to, if you were going to ask who I enjoyed being around, I was going to say the rookies. Because they're just so attentive to detail, they want to learn, and they want to earn their keep here, So I think they ask me, K, questions constantly throughout the day. They're just constantly asking questions, constantly picking our brains about stuff. So I'm excited for them, man, because we're going to instill a lot in them, and they're going to have an opportunity to really provide some good stuff for us. So, man, I would say they've been really good for us so far. For young fellas, rookies, they've been light years ahead of most rookies coming in.
light years ahead of most rookies coming in. First of all, we have to give a shout out because our head of production, Shane, had the perfect caption for Bradley Beal's look there, Lisan Al-Braid. So I mean, he looked incredible there. But Steven, this is good news, right? Like one of the big three is out here shouting out these rookies and not just their attentiveness to detail, their willingness to learn, but he did say specifically like they're light years ahead of where most rookies are, and we're expecting them to come in and contribute when they get their opportunity.
That's a major cosign. Mm-hmm. I've never, ever, whether Bradley Beal was, I was watching him in Washington, obviously, or when he first got to Phoenix, I've never gotten the impression that he's easy to impress. Mm-hmm. Like, you really have to, like, past just showing it, he has to, like, actually feel that you know what you're doing, that there's intent behind it, and that there's, there's impact with it. And I think for him to be so openly, like he said, he was going to say it before you potentially even asked. That says a lot about these rookies. I think that there's an opportunity for both of those two to carve out a niche over the course of the season. It might not necessarily be on opening night. It might not even be by December. But I think at some point, whether it's via trade or injury, there's going to be opportunity. And because it really sounds like, especially with obviously Ighodaro and excuse me, I'm drawing a blank, Ighodaro and Dunn, I feel like they're just going to be in a stay ready type of space. That when that opportunity presents itself, they're going to make impact and add value, and Mike Budenholzer is going to want to put them back in the rotation to see how much he can squeeze out of their potential as rookies.
Absolutely. And Beal also touched on a little bit later, the rookies and just kind of the youthful exuberance that they bring. I kind of wanted to ask him about that because it's been a while since we've had that. We've talked about it a little bit on the show, but we're going to have more on that over the weekend with these season previews that we've got Saturday and Sunday for the rookies coming out on gophnx.com. The one that is blowing up that's kind of made waves in the Suns Twitter space today was Bradley Beal was kind of asked about, finding the joy again, because he talked about at Media Day how he wanted to play with more joy and have fun out there. And so he kind of clarified his comments, but in the process, there was a whole nother thing that popped up. So let's listen to his comments.
I've enjoyed it. I think we kind of took it out of context a little bit. I might have explained it a little wrong. I had a lot of fun last year. They were obviously being hurt and trying to work your way back into it. That's the frustrating part. So I'll clear that up. But for me, like this environment now is it's light years for sure better than what we experienced. Everybody from last year, and it's just a new energy. Like everybody, it's just a new burst of just joy and passion to the game. We're excited about the pieces that we added, so it's a lot that we can look forward to. And obviously, we finished off the year like on a high note too. So I mean, obviously we didn't finish well, but we were competing well, and there's a lot of things that we can build on into this year. So it's a lot of positives, and joy is the biggest thing. If you're joyful, you're enjoying it. Like this is we have the best job in the world. So people have other real problems. We don't have many problems.
Man, Frank Vogel cannot just stop catching shots from afar, man. He really can't. Like that whole comment about it feeling light years better and more joyful than it did last year, having a new burst of energy and passion and joy. Tough look for the last coaching staff that was in here, but good news for the upcoming season, right?
100%. I think what kind of gets lost in watching games, I think the 82-game grind is underrated. That's a long time. That's a lot of games. For some teams, it's only 6 months. For a solid percentage of teams, it's a 7-month season. And for the elite, it's an 8-month season. That's a long time. And there's only one little break stretched out. Well, now one and some change with the in-season tournament. But really just one with the All-Star break. So being able to break that mundaneness that comes with playing for such a long time by enjoying the people that you work with, enjoying your work environment, but also having that youthful exuberance to break up everybody that's very veteran and kind of into their rituals over the course of a season, I think is extremely important. And having that value, even if not in the actual rotation on the court that the rookies are bringing, like Bradley Beal is speaking to, if they break up that mundaneness and just make the season even the slightest bit more enjoyable, that bodes extremely well for this team going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's become very clear from media day, from the last few days of training camp, that as much as Frank Vogel was not the only problem last season by a long shot, it was something that needed to be amended, and the team is in a better place, I think, now that they've made that coaching change. We're going to have one last clip, and Damion Lee is one that I'm really looking forward to writing his season preview. If you guys are interested in these season previews, I'm doing one a day right now up until October 18th on every single player on the roster. We're talking written preview, we're talking video breakdown. Those are over at gophnx.com. Make sure to become a diehard so you get access to all of our gated content that is for members only. You will also get merch, discounted tickets, and events. It's just a very good value for all of the things that you're going to get out of this deal. You also get a free shirt when you become a diehard member.
If you're sick like Gerald and you want to watch some TyTy Washington floaters, you can do so.
If you are a sicko and you want to watch 45 seconds of TyTy floaters, this is the place for you.
Or Collin Gillespie distribution in the paint. You can do that as well. Have you seen that guy draw contact? Go watch that season preview.
Welcome home. Last thing that we had for you guys today was Damion Lee, because like I mentioned, he is one that I am looking forward to writing his season preview because he just opened up in an incredible way at media day. He's always had a great perspective, but we were able to talk to him at training camp today. They've been doing 2-a-days at Suns practice. So the natural question was, how are you feeling, and how did your first day at training camp feel?
Good. I mean, tired, obviously. Anyone will be tired. You miss that much time. You got 2-a-days, so. But generally, I mean, I'm good. Just general soreness, so. I'm actually about to go get some lunch and get a massage now, so I'm taking all the proper steps.
Did you, was that first day of training camp, I mean, I know it was special for you, what you had to go through to get back to this point. Did it feel any different? Were there butterflies or anything like that?
Oh, for sure. For sure. You know, just the fact of kind of like I talked about at media day, like getting back to doing something that I love, something that was, you know, a situation where it was out of my control and, you know, the game was sort of ripped away from me. But yeah, I had butterflies in every drill, the excitement going through the stretches, like I couldn't sleep after media day. So I know I'll probably have some of those as well as, you know, games start to come up. And yeah, I think once opening night gets here, I think that's when like reality will set in, you know, that it's, you know, start of my 7th season, should be 8th, but I guess last year don't count.
Oh man, I'm really happy for him, and I hope that he is able to. I know it's tough to envision a role for him right now on this particular team, but if there is an injury, and for a team that wants to get up more threes, let's not forget D. Lee was a top 3 guy in 3-point percentage the last time that we saw him. So hopefully he will be able to play a role, and if not, we just want to see him on the court again and wish him the best. Steven, any final thoughts on D. Lee before we wrap up?
No, just definitely appreciate his openness and that transparency at which he speaks with. I think that there's a lot of value that he's going to provide to the team that's not going to take place with what he does in between those 4 lines as well. And for that to come from a veteran in particular, I just don't understand how you can just not see him as an equation to everything that this team is looking to do over the course of this season. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Steve Kerr, not Andre Iguodala, but all of the players that played on that second iteration of the Warriors all speak greatly about Damion Lee and just his presence. And it's not always about, like we keep speaking to, what you can bring on the court, because you can only play so many players, especially come playoff time. Can you provide value in relationship building, holding guys accountable, all of these other little things? And I think Damion Lee bridges that gap in multiple ways.
Absolutely, guys. I think that's going to do that for this edition of the PHNX Suns Pod. The next time you see us, we will be doing a preseason game, post-game show on Sunday. The Suns play actual basketball again, thank God, on Sunday. We are going to be covering that postseason or post-game show on a Sunday. It's going to be a lot of fun. In the meantime, we won't have a show Friday or Saturday, but There will be plenty of Suns content with the written and video breakdowns. Tomorrow, I'll be doing Jalen Bridges. Saturday, Ryan Dunn. And Sunday, Oso Ighodaro. So you guys will still have a steady stream of Suns content. And I think the Suns will practice on Saturday as well. So make sure to follow me on Twitter at Gerald Bourguet. Follow the show at PHNX_Suns. Follow our esteemed guests for the third day in a row. Stay true, S.3. That's Stephen Pridgeon-Garner. And until next time, I'm so glad Suns basketball is back.
We all silly like the mayor.